And another example of medium-sized adenoids in the back of the nose. And what you're going to see as you go down is huge tonsils touching in the middle. These are called kissing tonsils. And then as you go down, you'll see a normal airway below. All right, this last example is a very important concept. This is a patient, when I start playing it, it's going to show him breathing normally on his back in sleep with the mouth open like he normally breathes. So this is what mouth breathing looks like right there. See, this is the tongue. Now I'm going to close the mouth and notice it opens up. So I'm not touching the chin back, I'm just closing the mouth. And this is why an open mouth posture is not good for you, because the tongue goes back more. It narrows the airway more. So I came up with this acrostic called nostrils. It's something to help me remember all the conservative steps to do, or you can take for yourself or your patients to just breathe better and sleep better. So N stands for nose. I can't stress as an ENT how important it is to breathe through your nose, not just during the day, but especially at night. Because at night, things tend to get a little bit worse because of gravity, or maybe you have pollens or allergies. And with different sleep stages, there's differences in how well you breathe. And so what I do is I tape my lips vertically like this, and I use breathe right strips every night. It's not a dramatic difference, but cumulatively over time, it does make a big difference. So whatever you can do to open your nose artificially or naturally, whatever you want to choose to do, and also keep your mouth closed. Now these chin straps that are used also, that can help with snoring and sleep apnea. It does work in some people, but the problem is that you can still open your mouth, they're elastic. I prefer vertical taping versus horizontal taping, because even if you tape your lips vertically, you can still open your jaw significantly. So what I do is I go underneath the lower jaw to kind of suspend the lower jaw closed. Now, always for oxygen, and not talking about oxygen per se, but one thing about the nose is that it makes a gas called nitric oxide. Have you heard of that molecule? It's a very important molecule. And it's actually made all over your body. It actually relaxes blood vessels. And someone got the Nobel Prize for it a couple of years ago. But when you breathe the nitric oxide from your nose into your lungs, it increases oxygen by 10 to 20%. So that's why, notice these marathon runners, usually they're from Africa. At the end of the race, at 26 miles, they're running effortlessly with their mouth closed. They're running the whole race with their mouth closed. And typically about 10 paces back are the Americans with the big mouths open, they're flailing. And then number two, you would think that if you need more oxygen, you're going to breathe faster, you're going to breathe heavier, but they actually make things worse. And if you look at Buteyko breathing, for example, they bring up this concept that if you're stressed, if you breathe faster and more shallow, you're actually blowing off more carbon dioxide. And I think many of you probably know this concept, that when you blow off carbon dioxide, your pH level goes up. That allows the hemoglobin to hold on to oxygen, so you can't distribute to your cells. So the basic concept of Buteyko breathing is to slow down your breathing. And then another idea that kind of I learned from is in Ayurvedic medicine and yoga. I learned this like decades ago from Dr. Andrew Weil on the value of the relaxing breath. And many of you may already know that it's when you breathe in through your nose on the count of 4, hold for a couple of seconds, and then breathe out slowly through your mouth on the count of 7 or 8. And the benefit is that physiologically it makes total sense, because when you breathe in, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system, but when you breathe out, you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So the longer time you spend exhaling, the more time you're spending in the parasympathetic state. And I think that that's why a lot of people love to sing and talk, because you're spending most of your time talking, exhaling, which is the parasympathetic nerve, which is activated by the vagus nerve, which is your parasympathetic nerve. Now, sleep position, this is a huge issue for me. I'm guessing that very few people in this audience can sleep on their backs, right? You prefer to sleep on your side or stomach? Yeah. So modern people just can't sleep on their backs. I get asked all the time, what is the best sleep position? And my answer is, whatever you're most comfortable sleeping in, so stay there. But if something disrupts your sleep position, for example, if you're a stomach sleeper and you undergo hip surgery, now you're laid up on your back, and you're given narcotics for pain, what's going to happen in the hospital? Terrible things. Right? You're not going to sleep, first of all, then you have more apneas, more aspiration, more pneumonias, those kind of things. When I was in practice, about once a month, I would see typically middle-aged women with frequent sinus infections, multiple antibiotics didn't help, misery, pain, fatigue, and they come in for more antibiotics. And I asked them, do you sleep on your back side or stomach? And she'll tell me, I sleep on my back. I don't believe her based on her anatomy. So I asked her, well, when you were younger, how'd you sleep? On my stomach. When did you change? Oh, about 7 weeks ago. That's when all these problems started. I said, well, why? Why did you change? She says, my dermatologist said don't sleep on my stomach because it causes wrinkles. I can argue that you're going to get more wrinkles if you sleep on your back because you're not going to sleep. Now, timing is just to remind me, it's not about time management, but like what Lisa was saying, you have to go with the natural rhythms of life. So regular 7 to 8 hours of sleep, going to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time 7 days a week, regular breaks for lunch, regular exercise, have dinner with your family or loved ones, and just don't break these normal, boring routines. It's very important for your health. And relaxation, what I mean by this is also not just relaxation, but stress reduction. I was actually influenced by, with these concepts by, let me see here, Dr. Robert Sapolsky. Have you read this book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers? So he's a stress physiologist from Stanford. And his basic premise is that if you're a zebra and you're being chased by a tiger, the last thing you want to do is to eat or have sex, right? But modern life is not like that. We don't have tigers chasing us, but we have micro stresses throughout the day. So normally if you're in a fire, you have major stress, it goes down again. But with modern life, you have stress, you don't have time to come down. You keep having these stresses. So your nervous system and your immune system are constantly heightened like this. So this is what causes physiologic disruption with excessive stress levels. Okay? So imagine if that's happening all the time because you're not getting good sleep. What that's going to do to your gut, to your reproductive organs, your hands and your feet, these are considered less essential, right? When you're under stress, the body's going to divert physiologically blood flow away from the gut, or the reproductive organs, the skin, the hands and feet, and it's also certain parts of your brain. The higher level brain gets diminished blood flow, right? And so if you have chronic low blood flow to these tissues, the tissues by themselves are going to cry out, feed me, I need more food. In the process, they send out these signals like vascular endothelial growth factor and hypoxia-inducible factor, all these chemicals that promote new vessel growth and tissue growth. That's going to promote tissue and tumor development too. And all you need is one little mutation or trigger, then you're going to get a cancer. So that's one of the concepts that it's in the cancer literature. That's why you hear about these people with end-stage cancer that refuse all therapy. They go up in the mountains and meditate for 6 months and get cured. Right? Now, by ingestion, I mean not only what you eat, obviously you have to eat healthy, but also whatever you expose your body to, whether you put on your body, personal care products, what you breathe in, everything that you're exposed to, and even bad emotions, stuff on the internet, so bad thoughts. Anything that's potentially toxic is going to increase that stress level in your body. And then light is something that we just take for granted because we have light all around us. But some doctors have said that the invention of the light bulb was the worst thing to happen because it completely disrupted our sleep patterns. And number two, not only do we have light at night because of smartphones and computers, but just because in modern life we work indoors, we don't get enough sunlight, so we have less vitamin D. And the vast majority of us are very vitamin D deficient. I think the average is 28, which is below the 30 threshold. And that 30 threshold was developed 100 years ago to prevent rickets. You know what rickets is? Bowed legs. And you need a level of 40 for your gut to absorb calcium. But then you need a level of at least 50 to 60 or 70 to have all the health benefits, lowering rates of high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, depression, pretty much every condition out there, infectious diseases also. And there are many studies showing that vitamin D, having low levels of vitamin D, significantly raise your risk of COVID complications and death too. So how many of you are taking vitamin D supplements? Yeah, about half, yeah. Keep taking it. If anything, you may want to up the dose. It's hard to overdose in vitamin D, but the blood level has to be between like 50 and 70. Okay. And then lastly, sleep. Obviously, since we're all so busy and our lives are so chaotic, sleep is the last priority in our lives for most of us, for their kids, their family, work obligations. My Point is, sleep should be your most important appointment of the day for yourself. So don't think about it on your own appointment. Now, let's talk about compass. This is another acrostic I came out with to help me remember the 7 steps to treat this, whether conservatively with dental options or medical surgical options. C stands for conservative, which is what we talked about with the nostrils, but also removing all the toxins, personal care products. In our house, we changed our shower head filters to chlorine filters. That makes a big difference. We got a reverse osmosis filter to take out all the contaminants and fluoride. But reverse osmosis is not too good because it takes out all the essential minerals. So we have a system that adds it back also. Yeah. Well, that's why all these spring water in the mountains, like in Korea, we had these shrines where they have this mountain spring water. Is thought to be very, very healthy. And also eat as organically as possible. Obviously, you can't eat 100% organic, but there are studies showing that people who eat organically have much lower rates of cancer. O stands for oral appliances and braces, and I'm not going to go too much into detail, but there's so many different varieties of appliances out there, from braces and advancement devices, the BioBlock that Dr. Avis mentioned, the traditional palatal expander in the middle here. There's so many different options, and I think they all have their value. But what's more important is the expertise of the practitioner. And the myofunctional therapy, I think this is something that's severely underutilized in our country. If I'm not mistaken, I think this came on the scene about 20 years ago. There was it's been done for decades by different people, but there was a major study from Brazil, again, back to Brazil. They did a very good randomized prospective study showing that it lowers the rate of sleep apnea by 50% on average. And then I guess this huge industry just sprang up, and we're incorporating this into all of our patients' therapy sessions. So there was a huge meta-analysis by one of my colleagues, Matt Camacho from Stanford. He showed that on average, it lowered AHI by 50%, confirming the original study. But in children, there's 60% drop in the AHI level. So pretty powerful findings. And then you have pressure devices, whether it's CPAP, APAP, BiPAP, ASV, all those CPAP, so many different names. Basically, this has changed sleep apnea care and therapy for millions of people. But again, it's not for everybody, and some people just cannot use it no matter what. But it is one option for people that have the traditional sleep apnea diagnosis. And one of the things that I loved doing as an ENT was to help people who couldn't tolerate CPAP to use it much better and effectively, using various techniques, including surgery. Okay. Now, acupuncture hasn't been talked about, but it's interesting. Around the same time with the myofunctional therapy paper came out from Brazil, another paper came out from Brazil using acupuncture for sleep apnea, and again, 50% drop. And then S is for slimming down. Most people with ERS actually are underweight, so that's not going to be a problem. But for some people, even 3 to 5 pounds can make a big difference. For example, my wife tells me all the time that 3 to 5 pounds makes a big difference in how she feels and how she sleeps. Because your nervous system is so hypersensitive that even these minor weight changes can make a big difference in how well you breathe. Okay? And then I'm not going to talk too much about surgery, but that's a huge topic in itself, and that was my main field. But just to kind of give you a cursory overview, so for kids and people that you see in your age groups, tonsils are probably the biggest thing that you may want to consider. In our field, the pendulum keeps swinging back and forth every 10 years. Now we're kind of swinging back towards more conservative. And one of the reasons is that I think about 6 or 7 years ago, there was a study showing that even though tonsillectomy did make a big difference, in the control group where they did nothing, about 40% of kids resolved on their own. So based on that data, ENTs have been kind of a little bit more reluctant to offer tonsillectomy. But unfortunately, as with everything in medicine, it's about the money, the dollar value. Tonsillectomies don't pay a lot.